you better come correct if you're going to come at Notre Dame right now, because this isn't your older brother's Notre Dame team, and I don't know if they're going to win or not, but you better come with a little bit of respect.
All right, Booster Club, y'all asked for Brian Driscoll from Irish Breakdown to come back on the show, and guess what, Blaine? There he is. There's Brian Driscoll.
Magic. Mr. Driscoll, hello. How are we today?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic, man. Not as good as you, though, with your team playing in the national championship. Again, man, Michigan played in this thing a year ago. I was ecstatic. You guys are going to play the Buckeyes in the national championship. And look, that line has come down a bit. Right now, Notre Dame getting plus 8 points, right? This thing opened at minus 9.5 Buckeyes. Money line plus 290 for the national championship. Again, this game is going to be next Monday night. We're going to be live streaming it at Mission Cigar. But, Brian, I just wanted to get your overall thoughts. Start anywhere you want for this football game with your Notre Dame Irish playing in the national championship.
You know, I think the big thing for me is when you talk about championships, you want to say, did you get the best teams, right? Like not the team that got hot going into the playoff. Did you get the best teams? I thought last year we got the two best teams. I think the two best teams of college football last year were Washington and Michigan, and we got them in the championship game. Some people say Georgia. I've been high on Georgia the last couple of years, as you guys know. And I feel like outside of one bad day for Ohio State in November and one bad day for Notre Dame in September, over the course of the season, these have been the two most dominant football teams of college football, and we're going to find out who the best of them is. And so just looking at it from a Notre Dame standpoint, what excites you about this matchup is I feel like I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts on this. My opinion, I said this going into the Georgia game, this is the first time that I feel like Notre Dame's been on this stage where it's not they need everything to go right and the other team to commit 3 turnovers to have a shot to win it late in the game, right? It's more about, hey, play your game, run the football, win the turnover battle, play stifling defense. Riley Leonard, you got to make some plays. You got to get your skilled guys the ball in space to where you play your game. You've got a shot to win this football game. And this is a team that you've gone toe-to-toe with the last 2 years, and they've both been great battles. So I think that's what excites you as a Notre Dame fan, is that you're not like wishing upon a star, hoping that Mac Jones has an uncharacteristic 4-turnover game in order to have a shot to maybe win it at the end of the Rose Bowl. This is one of those times where you feel like if your team plays their game, they've got a great shot to win the football game.
I agree, and I think that there are parallels here to one, Michigan, the championship season from a year ago, and then Georgia the 2 years before that, because whenever you have blue blood college football programs, Georgia, Michigan, Notre Dame all qualify, but none had won a national championship this century, and you feel that pressure mounting up. Georgia's was even different because it was a Nick Saban and Alabama hump to get over, but Michigan and Notre Dame similar, can't get over the SEC hump, then y'all beat Georgia. Look, I think it's going to be a great football game, at least I'm hoping for. I think the path to victory is a little tougher for Notre Dame, but anytime you can play tough defense and run the football, that's the last 3 national champions we've seen. I know Blaine's going to get to that point in a second. I do want to say we're without Jake right now because Jake has a newborn baby daughter, Viola. Congratulations to him. They are at the first pediatrician's appointment, but he did give me a question to ask you that's on theme for having a new baby girl. He says, which young player for Notre Dame will have the biggest impact in the national championship?
Oh, if we're talking rookies, it's Leonard Moore. I mean, I guess you could say Jeremiah Love is a true sophomore, still young, but it's Leonard Moore and Christian Gray, the freshman and sophomore corners. Look, you're not going to lock down Jeremiah Smith for 60 minutes. I mean, you're going to cover him for 4 or 5 seconds, but you've got to hold your own. You've got to make some plays. You've got to do against the Ohio State receiving corps this year what Cam Hart and Benjamin Morrison did last year, where they held Marvin Harrison Jr. to 3 catches for 32 yards. Matter of fact, in 2 games against Benjamin Morrison and Cam Hart, Marvin Harrison didn't get to 100 yards total in those 2 games. He was pretty good, right? Jeremiah Smith is pretty good. They've got to be on top of their game. They can't commit young guy mistakes. They can't, get flat-footed against Jeremiah Smith the way that Christian Gray was against Arian Smith and let him go for 66, because I don't know you're going to catch Jeremiah Smith. You've got to be disciplined against Emeka in coverage. You've got to be able to, if you are able to somewhat slow down Jeremiah Smith, you can't let Cardinal Tate go off on you. And that's kind of the challenge of defending this Ohio State offense. So I think it's those 2 young guys have got to be on top of their game. And I mean, it's a big reason why Notre Dame is here. They haven't had Benjamin Morrison since the first game they played in October. And they still have a great pass defense. You've got to keep it going because you faced some really good receiving cores. But you haven't faced anything like this.
Well, I mean, it's a beautiful segue into my question. We saw what Texas did with Jeremiah Smith, but Texas is a heavy coverage zone team on defense, and what they did, obviously, that's not who Notre Dame is. And we can talk about styles make fights. Notre Dame runs more man coverage than anybody in the country, especially cover one. This is a question I want to ask you. Do you change that up walking into this football game for what you're about to play from a style standpoint? Man really doesn't match up well against these guys. It's not only Jeremiah Smith, but you have Mbuka, and you also have Carnell Tate, who did some good things in that Texas game, and Travion Henderson coming out of the backfield. And Will Howard right now is ranked #2 in the nation versus man coverage. So you still think Notre Dame, even with the young corners you brought up, is going to run a lot of man coverage in this game, or do you think it's going to be switched up to zone? And if you do, is that too late of a switch up walking into a national championship game?
I'm curious to see how Al Golden responds to the USC performance because they tried to run more zone in that game. Now they just still played some man, but they tried to do some zone as well, and that resulted in a few blown coverages because that's not who they are. And I'm of the belief that you've played 15 games. Being that defense is what got you here. You know, I heard this last year. You can't play man to man against Marvin Harrison Jr. Notre Dame said, "Well, we'll see," and they did. But at the same time, I think the thing that there's the what people miss about Notre Dame's zone coverage is they're a heavy man coverage with their corners. They do a lot of different stuff with their safeties. You know,
Mhm.
robbing down, playing over the top. You know, they'll do some things where they'll go like almost like cover zero to the boundary, but then help over top to the
Little cut
field or maybe
coverage,
help
yeah.
to the boundary depending on the
Mhm.
matchup. So I think you'll see that, but that's kind of already part of who they are. And that's what, you know, having a guy like Xavier Watts is impactful. So I don't think you're going to see Notre Dame go away from what got them here because I also think that then goes against what they like to do in the front seven, which is they do like to bring pressures. And look, I don't care if you're playing man or zone. If you don't get to the quarterback, it doesn't matter what coverage you're playing.
Yeah.
They're going to pick you apart. If you're going to have success, you got to get after the quarterback. And so the key is it's not asking them to cover, you know, play cover, pure cover one all game and cover for 3.5, 4 seconds. It's don't give him a half, 3.5, 4 seconds to throw the football. Don't let him get comfortable. Don't let him step into throws and that's what Michigan did to him. I mean, they were heating him up. That's what slowed that offense down against Texas. We talk about the zone coverage they did. I think it was the fact that they had 13 pressures and 6 hits on the quarterback
Yeah.
that had just as big of an impact. So that's the thing for me is will they mix up their coverages a little bit more? I do anticipate that to a degree. But look, guys, you're in the national championship game. You got to go with what got you here, and you got to trust your guys to do that. And then say, hey, D line, front seven, linebackers, we need you guys to get to Will Howard. We need you guys to carry your weight and make sure he doesn't have time to throw and doesn't get comfortable in the pocket.
And if you're going to do that, if you're going to bring pressure, which Notre Dame is extremely good at, you better be able to tackle in space. You
Yeah,
better
and
be able to
Michigan
tackle
was
in the
able to
one-on-one matchup.
stop the Buckeye run game too. I mean, Mason Graham just chewing up both A gaps.
gaps.
That gives you so much help in the back end. Brian, I've got some statements here for you. We're going to play a little fact or fiction. I'm going to hit you with a statement. You have 60 seconds on each to tell me why it's either a fact or why it's fiction. Okay, first one up here. Jeremiah Love, Notre Dame running back, will have a bigger impact on this game than Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver for the Buckeyes. Fact or fiction?
Fact. And I look at it two ways. Number one is if Notre Dame's going to win this game, you need Jeremiah Love to play like a star. I'm a believer, guys, that on this stage, your dude's got to be dudes, right? Riley Leonard's got to be a dude. Love's got to be a dude. So if he has an impact, if he has a big impact, then I think Notre Dame can control the clock, put Ohio State's defense in a bind, keep Ohio State's offense off the field, and then lead Notre Dame to 20-plus points, which they'll need to win. If he doesn't have a good game, then I don't think Notre Dame can score enough to win. So whether he plays well or doesn't, the impact is going to be enormous for this offense. They need Jeremiah Love to have a big game, and if he doesn't, it's going to be a lot tougher to win.
All right, next one. 3 more here. Riley Leonard will have more turnovers than Will Howard. Fact or fiction?
Fiction. I think when I look at it, Riley Leonard hasn't had multiple games this year where he's been kind of turning the ball over. I think he made a couple throws that he tried to force a couple balls against Penn State, and he's going to learn from that a little bit. Ohio State's also not a huge interception team. They're an elite pass defense, but they've only forced, I think, 10 interceptions on the season. So they don't force a lot of turnovers. They're more about you're going to stuff you on first and second down and force you to punt the ball. And so I do not see that. Where Notre Dame is the number one turnover defense in college football. And I think that's going to be a factor. And that could be 1-0.
Yeah.
But I don't think
No,
he'll have
that's
more.
significant. They'll both turn it
Yeah.
over. So, yeah, I mean, 1-0, you'll take that. Notre Dame will score a defensive touchdown. Fact or fiction?
Fiction. I never predict that. I mean, that's impossible to predict, you know, and so I'll say fiction. I think their defense is going to have to set up at least one score. whether that's
Okay.
them getting it or like the Georgia game, forcing a sack, you get the ball at the 13 and your offense punches in on the next play. I do think they'll need that to win this game unless their defense is just absolutely lights out. But will they score a touchdown? I'm gonna say fiction because it's hard for me to predict that.
All right, last one here. Former Notre Dame coach Brian Kelly came out and said, "Hey, I'm rooting for Notre Dame. I want them to win the championship. I recruited a lot of these guys. He did the right thing. Whatever you have to say about it, he's saying the right things." Brian Kelly, deep down, does not want Notre Dame to win this championship. Fact or fiction?
I'm gonna say fiction as much as I want to say fact. I don't want to. I don't want to question the man's motives. I think his words were BS when he starts talking about I recruited most of those guys. I think Notre Dame has like 7 starters that Brian Kelly recruited. The vast majority of this team is not Brian Kelly recruits, but I don't want to question the man whether he's rooting against players that he coached. I don't have a very strong opinion of Brian Kelly, but I don't think he's that petty. I could be wrong, but I don't think he's that petty. I think he genuinely does. His former coach's guy. I mean, Mike Denbrock was in his wedding. I would imagine he wants Mike Denbrock to win a championship. I would assume. So I'll say he does want Notre Dame to win.
You disagree with any of those?
No, I think he's spot on. I think Brian Kelly does somewhat. You got a little bit of love still in your heart somewhere to watch these guys win a national championship. It might suck at the same time, but I wouldn't be surprised. But there's another question that we didn't really talk about, and what I'm interested in. How much confidence do you have in these tackles? A little bit banged up there. I mean, you're going to get guys Jack Sawyer and JTT. It obviously helps when Riley Leonard can throw. But do you think these guys will be able to protect Riley Leonard enough for 4 quarters to where he can actually have success through the passing game?
They don't even know who their tackles are going to be yet.
Yeah.
So,
Man.
I as of right now, I would assume it's going to be Charles Jagasaw. We'll see how it is. I thought they did a pretty good job in the second half against the Penn State edge players. One thing about this offensive line, they've played some really good edge players this season, including a week ago. And then the week before that, it's Georgia. A week before that, it's Mikhail Kamara. They've played Nick Scorton. Georgia Tech has a really good defensive line. So they're pretty battle tested. It's not about dominating the matchup. It's just holding your own.
Yeah.
And if they do beat you on the edge, get a body on a body, and then let Riley go do his thing. That's going to be the big thing. It's just stay engaged. Don't let the run throughs where your quarterback's getting hit from behind. Get a body on a body. Let your athletes then kind of use some escapability. So, but that is going to be a key though. If they can't protect Riley, then they're going to have no chance to win this game. Yeah. If they can, then I do think Notre Dame can move the ball enough to win this game.
I agree.
A couple more for you here. We've got Brian Driscoll with us again from Irish Breakdown. If you're not familiar with his content, please go check it out. He's on YouTube everywhere. I'll let him plug at the end, but he's our resident Notre Dame guy, and we love having him on. Brian, it feels like Notre Dame is America's team right now. Is that something that just kind of gets said every championship for the underdog? Or, is this an element that people really are rooting against the Buckeyes? How do Notre Dame fans feel about this right now entering the championship?
I think it's like, if you could use a scene from a movie from Anchorman, I don't believe you. I don't believe it. They may say that on Twitter, but I've been a Notre Dame fan for a long time. I have a hard time believing once the game starts that people are like, I'm actually rooting for Notre Dame. I think if anything, it's more of a dislike of Ryan Day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really likable kids on that football team at Ohio State. I mean, just a lot of good kids. I think Ryan Day makes them unlikable, much like I felt like Brian Kelly made Notre Dame unlikable and Charlie Weiss made Notre Dame unlikable. It wasn't that they have bad kids. It's just the head coach is like, that's the representative of your institution. So I think it's more of that Ryan Day just kind of rubs people the wrong way. And I think it's more of that than it is love for. I don't think a lot of fans are going to get joy out of watching Notre Dame win. They're just going to get joy out of watching Ryan Day lose more than anything else.
It's not a love thing. They just hate Ohio State so much.
Exactly.
Well, look, this is just about the worst possible matchup for Michigan fans. The only way to make it worse is if somehow you throw Michigan State in there. All right, this is just bad. Anything else for you for Brian?
I'm good, man. He checked all my boxes.
All right, Brian, that means it's time for your score prediction, man. How's this one going to go?
I think it's going to look a lot like last year's game, but with a touchdown each for each team. And I think the roles are going to be reversed. I think that this Notre Dame team matches up well against Ohio State in some very important areas. And the difference between the two teams this year compared to last year is Riley Leonard. I mean, this is what you brought him here for. It's the playmaking ability. It doesn't always look sexy, but he just makes plays. And when you look at how they played in the second half against Penn State, 261 yards and 24 points in only 30 minutes. They found a way, and there were some really big missed opportunities early that they cleaned up and were able to roll. I just feel like this offense is going to be able to do enough. You're going to be able to get Jeremiah Love going, make enough plays in the pass game, and you don't got to shut Ohio State down. You just got to keep the points down. And outside of Tennessee, Ohio State has not scored a lot of points against the really good defenses they played this year, including Texas. Look at Penn State, Indiana. They didn't really move the ball all that effectively. They had some short fields. And then, of course, we saw what Michigan and Nebraska did to them as well. So, and this, I think, is the best defense that we'll have played this year. So I have a 24-20 game. I think it's going to be a great ball game between two really good football teams. And I feel Notre Dame pulls this one out.
Makes a lot of
Did
sense.
you expect
man.
anything less?
Yeah.
No. I mean, I think I said 2017. We talked about last year's game. That one was 17-14, right?
Yeah, and then they scored in the final seconds from the one. Yeah,
I think if Notre Dame's going to win this game, it needs to be somewhat low scoring.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, you don't want to get into. They don't have the offense to get into a track meet with Ohio State.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Please tell everybody where they can find your content.
Any YouTube channel, go to YouTube, type in Irish Breakdown. You'll see us. You'll see that logo right there. If you listen on podcasts, Apple, Spotify, whatever platforms, you can also type in Irish Breakdown there. You want to get our written content, go to irishbreakdown.com. If you want to go to our premium board where we have our film breakdowns, you can go to boards.irishbreakdown.com. I try to make it as easy as possible, guys. Irish Breakdown. If you want to follow me on Twitter, at Coach D178 is where you can find me. That's the only anomaly because I started that one like over a decade ago.
You must be making it easy because you get a view from me every single day. After our live show, when I'm on YouTube and we have our chat pulled up, it populates right into Irish Breakdown. So by the time I look at it after a show, I'm 10 minutes into your show. You get a view from me every day, brother. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, man.
I had an epic rant today at the start of our show you're going to want to watch.
Okay. Well, share a little bit. Give us a teaser.
I went after a certain beat writer from CBS Sports for an absurd question he asked of Riley Leonard at yesterday's press conference where I was not too happy about it. So.
Hold on. Brian, are you joining the Get Off My Lawn movement? Because we're welcoming everyone.
If you want to call it that, it's a you better come correct if you're going to come at Notre Dame right now because this isn't your older brother's Notre Dame team and I don't know if they're going to win or not, but you better come with a little bit of respect. And said Jaden Greathouse didn't even make a move. The guy just fell down, called his move a rec league basketball head fake, and talked about Notre Dame, who's had 11 linemen on both sides of the ball, miss multiple games that are starters or key reserves, said that everything has gone your way this year. I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. I'm sure Notre Dame's happy that Benjamin Morrison only played 6 games. I'm sure they're thrilled that they've had 4 starting offensive linemen go out and 7 defensive linemen go out. I'm sure, everything's gone their way. Sure. That lucky 52-3 win they had over Florida State, they just grinded out some of those tough wins where 12 of their 14 wins were by double digits. Just got real lucky, getting that done. So, yeah, sure, buddy. That's what it was.
I wasn't expecting a rant at the finale. What did you say? This isn't your grandfather, or this isn't
your older brother's Notre Dame?
This isn't your older
grandfather's Notre Dame was pretty flipping good, right? So this isn't your older brother's Notre Dame that has not been what people say about Notre Dame now is what they were for a long time. But this isn't that team. This isn't 2012 Notre Dame. This isn't 2020 Notre Dame. This isn't 2002 Notre Dame. This is a different type of Notre Dame team.
That's what I was saying about Georgia and Michigan.
Penn State found that out. Indiana found that out. Texas A&M found that out. This is a different football team.
I love it. Snapping necks and cashing checks, baby.
Hey, go ahead and book some time with us next week so we can recap this game, man. Thank you again so much for joining us, and hey, best of luck to the Irish.
Appreciate it, Brian.
Thanks, guys.
See you, man.
Hey, what's up, YouTube? Absolutely balling weekend of football this weekend coming up. Why don't you get it started off right? If you hadn't subscribed to the show yet, go ahead and do that. If you're new, welcome home. If you've been here, we appreciate you.